And in 1995, I was in a psychiatric institution with major anxiety disorder, panic disorder, PTSD, and depression. So welcome to the conference. I'm so happy you're here.
And so I don't mean to be flip, I really don't, but it's my story and I'm not ashamed, I'm not embarrassed. It's why I'm here with you today.
I am Tammy West, and that is my story. Welcome to Consider Yourself Hugged, a place to find comfort and support as you navigate your mental and emotional well-being. So sit back and relax, unless you're driving, and get ready for this week's hug. Oh, Michelle, I forgot to remind you. I would have only remembered it because I was doing like on the show notes, but okay, if you're watching, what I'm holding up here is a plate with these brownie cookies on them and
yummy.
My pumpkin spice coffee. What do you have in your coffee mug?
Just coffee.
Just coffee.
And it's Mickey Mouse.
I love Mickey Mouse. Well, last week we said, and I don't remember why, that we were going to bring brownies to the next podcast recording. Do you remember? You don't even remember, do you? Because I didn't.
No.
Okay.
It's been a week. I'm sure we'll talk a bit about it, but it's been a really long week for
we both had
us.
some trauma this week, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, if anyone remembers, would you like put it in the show notes but because I knew you wouldn't remember and I forgot to tell you, and it was like 5 minutes before, I broke it in half, and here's a piece for you and here's a piece for me.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sending it through the airways, and then I do have pumpkin spice because I went to Starbucks yesterday and got like the big one, and then I just dumped a little into my plain coffee so it wasn't quite as.
Have you had their pumpkin cream cheese muffin? Have you ever had that?
Why are you hurting me? Do you not remember?
Oh, I do remember they were out.
Yeah,
they were out.
Okay, so all right, friends. So Michelle, she calls me and tells me, "Oh my gosh, I've got this pumpkin. You got a pumpkin spice latte, right?" And
no, I got just a regular vanilla latte.
Okay.
And then I got the pumpkins muffin, cream cheese muffin.
Yeah. So she calls me and she's like, "Oh my gosh." So I immediately get onto the Starbucks app because it's just 7 or 8 minutes down the road from us. And I ordered it and get in the car. We get there and I go in and there's only coffee. And I said, "Oh, I think I'm supposed to have a muffin." And they're not friendly in my Starbucks. And she just looked at me and said, "Oh, sorry, we're out." So no, I haven't had it yet. Have you had it again or just the one time?
I've had it twice since it came out this season.
All right. Well, I'm going to try again. Well, that was enough like talk of, yeah. Should we jump in?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you what I did first, because we're in episode 7 and I thought, okay, let me back up a minute, because I have to tell you, Michelle and I talked a little bit about this if we came on, but what we're doing, like I'm calling it this work that we're doing. I don't know about y'all, but I have never done a 10-week module of growth like this. I don't think ever. Have you?
No, not like this.
Yeah. And in the beginning, I think I confided in you that I was like, yeah, it seems pretty basic, but all right, I'll do it. It is like permeated every area of my life. It really has. And I thought, well, we haven't really, like modules 1 through 5, you can think about it. I just wanted to remind you all. And I don't remember to put the links in the show notes, but like I told you last week, it's like they're in order. So all you have to do is go back. But I always remember, so in the first week, we were introduced to positive psychology, and we really just like learned that PERMA model. The 5 things, positive emotions. What was the, oh, look, did you see that?
Is that because you said positive emotions?
If you're on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, you're not seeing, but yeah, I said positive emotions. I don't know. And balloons came up on the screen. Oh my gosh.
How do we get that to happen again?
I don't know. We're going to try and okay. Positive emotions. All right. I'll stop now. The E is engagement. Oh, It's doing it again. Okay, the R is relationships, like positive relationships. The M is meaning and meaning, and the A is accomplishments. So we learned about that. And then the second, do you have anything to say about that? Because I don't.
No.
Okay. The second week is where we did our strengths assessment. And I wanted to tell you, I wrote thank you notes for the first time in years to all the people who came to my little party. I wrote them.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I did. And it was mainly because I was like, so, and I went back and looked at our strengths assessment. If you all have not done that, you need to. Gratitude was only number 9, but I thought, well, that doesn't mean it's not important to me. It's just not one of the things that drive me. Anyway, I thought about that. Do you have anything about that?
I think doing the strengths assessment has been just like you said. I mean, it really has guided from day to day. I mean, just like today, I can't wait for you guys to hear some of the really interesting things, because I think, like you said, like we might think, oh, that seems basic, but the reality is if we don't engage in it anyway, if we think it's too basic and we just don't do it, like it's not helpful.
Will you write that down? That
Yes.
that is exactly if we don't engage in it. Because Michelle and I both, and to be fair to Michelle, by the way, I didn't tell her I was going to go through these and give her a chance to think about it. I'm sorry, I was a little bit last minute, but
That's why I'm like,
I
no,
know,
I
I'm
don't have
sorry.
anything to say.
I'm sorry. It's my fault. It's my fault. You think about it for next week. That was really the biggest thing I had. I only had one more thing really, but we it we I think sometimes we think we're not above it, but that's not the word, but what do we, I don't know, do we think it just permeates into us because we work in it and we talk about it, but if we don't engage in it, it's not helpful.
I think like it's a perspective. Like I think in some areas we probably definitely do, but it can be more helpful in other areas that we don't utilize it in. And that's what I learned from like today's module.
All right, I'm going to hurry and get to today's module. So the third one was the happiness scale, and I did go back. So go back to that module, everybody, and there's where you take like a happiness scale. It's happiness and well-being was the third module, but the first time that I took the happiness quiz, and it's only 4 questions, I had a 4.75, and this time I had a 6.2. And I think part of the reason is Michelle and I talked about when we look at like scoring ourselves, like, do you not pick the highest number because you think like, oh, it couldn't be the highest number. So on one of them, I did pick the highest number because I was like, yeah. So it went up. So
Yay.
take yours for next time. Number 4 was meaning and accomplishments. So go back and look at there. That's where we set SMART goals and look at what's important to your life. And then module 5 was on positive emotions, which I think is just is everything. Module 6 is the one that we'll recap today before we jump into module 7. So I just wanted to say those things. So yeah. What about the activities? Did you work through the module 6 activity sheet? Oh, and last week, module 6 was self-esteem and confidence, which is my biggest battle, I think.
Yeah, there were less. I mean, obviously the activities were very different from some of the other
Mm-hmm.
modules that we have done. But yes, and I feel like it was very eye-opening in looking at the difference between the two and that they are not
Self-esteem
interchangeable.
and confidence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So,
Yeah, I think so too.
and that's really like what I identified was that there are certain areas where those things, one or the other, could use work, and then other areas like it's very dependent upon the topic.
Yeah, I know that was really enlightening to you. And when you brought it up, it really spoke to me too. I'm not going to talk about, I mean, so what we've been doing and what we'll do today is we spend a little time going through anything that spoke to us on the previous week's activity sheet, and then we jump into this. Um, I had like 3 or 4 things. Did you have anything that stood out to you on the activities?
No, I mean not in particular.
So one of the things, and this permeates everything for me, it was weird for me a while back when I realized that all of the like confidence issues relate to my job, even though I'm a parent, I'm a Christian, I'm a wife. And then I've realized that's because those were those words spoken over me, right? That I didn't have any initiative and I wasn't good enough. And that was important for me to realize. It's not because I used to think, well, that must be the thing I value most in life. But I don't think it's that. I think it's um that's where my pain is. And so that's where my self-esteem is. So on question one, there was a reflection and it says, after you've rated yourself, pick one or two statements where you scored low. One that I scored low was, I accept compliments without minimizing my accomplishments. And it could be 1 to 10. 10 is strongly agree, and I picked 4. So if I have compliments, either outside or inside, but it said, what would help you? So I wrote down, it said, what would help you? And I wrote down practice was the first thing. And the second thing relates to these strengths. One of mine is humility. And I said, remembering humility is a strength, but it is not the same as low self-esteem. And so that was helpful for me.
Yeah, that we can get those definitely confused.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that before, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah. And like how societal expectations can sometimes play a part in that, like how we were raised.
Yeah, exactly. And then just 2 more short things. One of them was in number 2 in the worksheet. It was identifying limiting beliefs. And it says, think about a time when you doubted yourself or felt insecure, and write down the belief. So, of course, it's work related. So I was doing a speaking thing with someone else, and I remember thinking, oh, I'm not professional enough. I should be more professional. Well, I've been doing this for 20 years. And right after I did that session with someone, I did a live webinar. And they actually even stayed on longer and they said they appreciated me being authentic, like just being authentic. So here's what I wrote down. So it said, challenge it. So I challenged it and I wrote down, I am where I am because of my style, not in spite of it. So that was helpful to me anyway.
Yeah, very good. And like as you were talking, I kind of realized something else that was more pertinent that kind of came across this week with some stuff I've been going through. But you connecting it back to kind of your initial, like, what would you call that? Would you call it an initial wound, an initial,
Oh,
like, core
yeah.
belief, whatever that, yeah. And
Yes.
yeah, so like I had a situation where this week where I reached out to both Tammy and to another like accountability person of mine to talk through a situation with them to see, okay, are the actions that I have chosen to take because of a situation that I felt was really wrong, like, are they appropriate? Or should I let it go? What should this be? And like as you were talking, I realized that kind of growing up, like the kind of concept that, it's better when you're seen and not heard.
Yes, you've told me that before.
That kind of thing has often for me, and it translates different for everybody. And then like it's definitely a situation where they're just trying to teach respect. But for me, I have definitely at certain times in my life had trouble speaking up. And so apparently I don't have that trouble anymore.
I was so proud of her, by the way. We can't really talk about the situation because it would just be invading other people's privacy. But some of the things that she told me that she did, not just now, but even a few weeks ago, I can't remember, you used a power phrase with someone. And but Yeah, go ahead. But I was so proud of you. I could hear it in your voice and how it might not have been easy, but you spoke up.
Yeah, like very coming from a place where at one point definitely did not speak up in my life when I should have. Um, and that definitely did not happen. Like to the degree that, like I said, I called Tammy and Heather Houlet and was like, "Hey, do you think I'm like overdoing it with this?" And like, no, I think it's appropriate. So, but yeah, that comes from like in looking at this, that does come from like that. Oh no, you're better off if you're
Just be
just
quiet. Just
quiet, not
don't
notice,
cause a
don't push back,
stir.
be nice, even if people aren't being nice to you. And that doesn't always work in life. We sometimes have to stand up.
But see, again, what I love about you, and I hope listeners, watchers, everyone is really hearing this, is that you take time to process it. I'm not saying, I mean, I want to say Michelle is perfect, but we all know we're not. Look, but I'm sure there are
Absolutely not.
times, you've never done it to me, but I'm sure there are times where you might just spew because, our emotions, we are humans, and sometimes things just happen or you overreact. But for the most part, um, you really do take time to process things. And I admire that in you. I do ask myself, what would Michelle do? I do. I do.
Oh,
I do. I do.
well, obviously, I called and asked you
You
what you
do.
thought I should do. So it's
Well,
always good to have accountability, no matter who you are. It's good to
it
have if something that's really personal and emotional. It's always good to talk through it.
it is. But we've talked about dress friends and pants friends, right? Yeah, for
Yes,
the most
yes.
part, if you all don't know what that is, for the most part, I'm a dress friend. So I relate it to like if you eat a bunch of donuts for like a couple months, your dress might not care as much. Dresses are a little more forgiving, right? They're like, oh, it's okay. I have a little more elastic in this, or but pants friends are like, oh, girl, you better watch it. So I'm more of a, it's okay. I'm not always the just speak up, but Michelle and I do help each other process things, and that's really helpful.
Yeah, and I think like and I'm kind of like that. I want your true opinion.
I do. And that was
Yeah,
my true opinion, but
yeah.
yeah. And that I was actually going to mention you too on our last thing I wanted to say on this before we move on is that number 6 was celebrating small wins. And I shared with Michelle before we came on, I thought that I wrote a text to someone who was struggling, and the response that I got seemed like I really upset them. And for a moment, my mind, like, for me, this was a small win because I didn't, I took a moment. I didn't even tell my husband, I didn't tell anybody. I just took a moment to think about it. I reminded myself that my heart was in the right place. I reminded myself that this was, a person who was going through some struggles. So it made, it was okay. I wasn't going to just like hold a grudge or anything like that. It turned out it was a really good thing that I felt that way because it was a misunderstanding. The response wasn't for me; it was in a group text. But anyway, it all worked out fine. But about celebrating, to me, that was really celebrating that small win. So I don't know if you saw, Michelle. This takes us all the way back full circle to the app that we've downloaded, How We Feel. And so I it said after a week, this is the end of this last question. After a week, look back at your list of things. How does it feel to see your progress? And I was like, feel. We're looking for feelings here. How do I feel? And the How We Feel app, by the way, I do want to say I'm not sure all those things that are in there are feelings like tired. I'm not sure that's really an emotion. But anyway, I still love all of it. So there's like 100 different words. And I was like, well, how do I feel? And I was like, I am amazed. So I put that in there. But then I was like, I also feel successful. And so I sent that to Michelle, although I didn't send you all the stuff that went with it. So that's where I
Yay.
am as we start entering motivation and optimism. And I'm going to take a bite of this brownie. Mm-hmm.
Looks very good.
It's like a chocolate chip. Well, it's not like it is. At Connect group last night, we bring food. That's our small group at church. And I brought, did you know Subway has a foot long cookie?
No.
That's what it is. We got a couple other things that weren't super good, but the foot long cookie is delicious. So I highly recommend it. Ready?
I just realized because on these webinars, like we can like you are full screen and I have a little like I can see myself in a little picture, and I just realized that I got more excited about a foot long cookie than I probably have anything else the rest of the week. Okay, that's it. You can move on.
I didn't pick up on that. I didn't pick up on that, but it was probably because I was too busy enjoying that cookie.
I saw myself get way too excited over a foot long cookie.
If I ever have to give up sweets, it's going to make me so sad. Well, I'm optimistic that I won't, and I'm motivated to take care of myself so that I won't have to. How's that for a transition?
That's very good. That was perfect.
Okay, so this is module 7. You were excited about this module. Do you have anything to open up with?
Well, so I think that like the thing that going through it, and again, it's a module where there was one thing I didn't necessarily agree with, and we always talk about those things as well. But like the concept of putting these things into practice on day to day. And so it gave some tools for improving motivation.
Which you will have the activity sheet as soon as Michelle and I
Yes.
decide what those final activities will be.
So it gave like those tools, and like realizing that there are things I waste time on that I need to apply this to. Because I mean, it goes through, and I guess it's okay to talk about motivation first and then go back.
You can do
Optimism
whatever you
wise,
want to.
yeah, optimism wise, like I don't struggle with pessimism. That's not generally how I
Mm-mm.
view things. So, I read that. I felt like it was helpful information, but it's not something I struggle with. And motivation, I wouldn't have said I have any struggle with either. I have always done to-do lists. I love getting stuff done from the to-do list. But it said in terms of like not when you're not doing something towards your goals,
Wait,
it's asking questions like, what am I
are
doing?
are you in our little hour program? Are
Mhm.
you reading at? Will you tell me where you are? Do you know? I
Yeah,
want
I wrote this down, but I can pull it
Oh, no,
up.
no, it's fine. Go ahead. You can read it. Are you about to tell me
The
what you disagree with? Is that what we're looking at?
No. I'm talking
Okay.
about like the things I really liked. When it says to ask yourself questions. What am I doing?
Oh, yeah.
Why am I doing it? How do I feel right now
Yes.
about the activity I am doing? And so one of the things this weekend, because I again, very difficult week. And yesterday, super tired, didn't feel great, and I spent too much time, I felt like, even during the day when I was doing it, like scrolling on my phone.
Hmm.
And so, like, asking myself, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it?
You did ask
How,
yourself why
how do I
you.
feel right now? Well, I did this morning.
Okay. All right.
So I did not, but I realized like what a great tool to do that in those times when I really feel like I should be doing something else, but I am wasting time. Like, okay, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? How am I feeling? To be able to allocate that time to something I'd rather be doing. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but like the things that are time wasters for me that I know that I'm wasting time on, I really would prefer not, but tend to do it anyway. Those types of things.
Well, and I will throw in here, just as your dress friend, um, I mean, I will say sometimes we need that. And I know you're very motivated and you're very driven and you're very productive, but it might be okay sometimes. I think it's really important what you just said. And I have those questions in our draft activity sheet. What am I doing? I'm scrolling on my phone. Why am I doing it? It might be okay sometimes to say, because I need 10 minutes of just mindless time, you know? Um, and how do I feel about this activity? If you feel, I mean, I think with social media, that's a really good example that you gave. If it's making you feel better because you're watching puppy videos or you're watching somebody, that's great. If it makes you feel worse because you're seeing somebody who's venting, or you see somebody at the beach and you feel bad that you're not there, then it's not helpful. I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it's probably different for everybody. Like at the end of for me, at the end of scrolling and watching like reels or whatever it is that I'm spending time on, very rarely do I ever feel fulfilled or better,
Hmm.
like after I've spent that time. And so I think that there are other things that are downtime activities for me.
That would be better.
It would be better for me. Other people, I mean, it may be completely different, but for me, like asking myself these questions kind of
Is
got me in touch with, oh, this really isn't something for me that
That's so
is
good.
doing anything. It's these questions. It's this module. That's why I'm so excited.
I could tell you were so excited. Um, do you remember? And I'll try to put a note here. Um, the mental health quotient Michelle and I did. Was Gracie a part of that too when we were all three
Yes.
co-hosting?
Yes.
So we have, I don't know how many episodes on the mental health quotient, which is a online assessment that you can take that's really good. It's not like a marketing thing, it's a global research project. But one of the 6 domains of mental wellness, one of them is motivation. Out of everything that could have been chosen, one of them is motivation. And I don't know, we've talked about, Michelle and I both have talked about wanting to have, just noticing that we don't necessarily have as much fun or whimsy or whatever you want to call it in our lives. And I was just thinking about this concept of motivation, like asking yourself like why you would do it. Or yesterday I said to Tim, I was like, let's go to a movie. And so we did. And I mean, we only go to, I don't know, sometimes we'll go years without going to a movie. But it's sort of like whenever we decide to go to a movie, we talk ourselves out of it because we're like, well, it's money. We have to drive all the way there. What if we don't like it? It was raining like cats and dogs here yesterday, but we did. And it was great. We went to see Lee Miller, by the way. I don't know if any of y'all have heard about that, but she was in the 30s. She was a model and then she became a war correspondent photographer. And she went over and shot like right at the end of World War II. She went into concentration camps. It was very
Oh, I
powerful. But
haven't heard of it, but it sounds like a definitely something I'd want to see.
yeah, it's not like super, it didn't get rolled out into like every theater. It has Kate Winslet. It was really good. But so one of the things, yeah, we'll just do motivation and then we'll come back to optimism. As a definition, motivation is the energy that drives you towards your goals. It's what gets you up in the morning, keeps you going when things get tough. It ebbs and flows. By understanding what fuels your motivation and being intentional about managing it, you can achieve more and feel more fulfilled. Those 3 questions is being intentional, being engaged in it. But the first thing about driving you towards your goals, like that goes back to like meaning and accomplishments. Like, what are our goals? And I'm just like thinking this through right now. I didn't like say yesterday, oh, I'm motivated to fulfill the goal of having more fun. But I remembered that it's something that we talk ourselves out of having fun every single weekend,
Yeah.
every single weekend. So I love that. Let me see. What else? Did you have anything else? Let me see what else I wrote down about motivation.
I think it also, like going through these questions, it made me realize that there are a couple of areas where um, I do procrastinate. One in particular, like planning. Like I like travel. We have a fairly large trip that we plan to go on next year. And um, I often find myself like putting off planning for it. And I'm like, well, why is that? I'm excited about going. But I think that, like, oh, this is a big deal. It's an investment. What if we don't plan right? What if we don't like
The what
pick
ifs.
the best this or that? And I think it's just like the worry of messing it up
Yeah.
that keeps me from doing it.
Do I know about this trip?
So we have planned on going to Hawaii for a long, long time. And so, we've kind of gone back and forth about when we're going to go and so forth. And it's going to be kind of like a 10-day trip. So,
So you're doing it?
well, if I plan it, we will.
You need to write a SMART goal for that, Michelle.
I do, I do.
You
But I
do.
do think like I start to looking and there's so many choices that I'm like, what's going to be best? I want to pick, I want to plan this and make it fun. And so it is kind of just like, okay, I don't want to mess this up. So I haven't started.
Gosh, I
And the
can think
others,
of so many things like your strengths and the SMART goals and there was something we talked about last time. I can't remember. It'll come to me in a minute. But just the we the is that part of your like before I die kind of thing, or is that one of the things that was on your list of things
yeah,
that
it's been on there, yeah, for a long time. And this particular module helped me realize why I'm procrastinating. I kind of knew that I was, and I'm, me, I'm very rarely a procrastinator in anything.
yeah.
But for this, I knew I was. And so, like, why of all things would this be what I was procrastinating over? And so this kind of helped me realize why.
Well, and it's fun, which is not always top priority.
Right. Right.
Gosh, I can't believe we have procrastinated the same thing. Do you realize that? Tim and I have talked about going to Italy for years. We've even
What?
marked time off the calendar, and then we're like, well,
Why do you think you procrastinated? I'm just curious.
um, the biggest thing is the biggest thing that I say is money, but I think it's more fear that something will happen and we'll need whatever money that we have. But this time, I'm actually, oh, this is not good to say, but I'm kind of glad we didn't go. Michelle knows this, but you all watching and listening may not. But Christy McClellan is, she's a preacher, teacher, Bible scholar. She's a professor at Williamson College. She has been over in Israel for years studying and teaching, and she does tours. Well, Israel is not, we don't think the best option right now, to go to Israel anytime soon, but she leads tours to Italy. And the thing that's awesome about it is it's it combines our love of history. So that's part of why we want to go to Italy. We've just watched a lot of different things about that. It's a religious tour, so we get to combine our spirituality with it. The downside, it's much more expensive than just us cheaping it going over there. But as we looked into it, it includes, we don't know yet. She doesn't have any dates open, but from previous trips, I mean, for when I think about like you and the overwhelming nature of all of it, and I'm the same way, but it's all planned,
Hmm.
all
Nice.
planned. So anyway, that's probably not the best um, story to inhibit or to keep me from procrastinating because it worked out well. But I'm not procrastinating this time. We aren't going in 2025, but because it's the year of Jubilee, 35 million extra people come in to Rome. So we're definitely going to go unless something comes up with a Christie trip, but our plan is to do it in 2026. So
Hey,
there you go.
I think that was a great example, I think.
Yeah, except it rewarded me that I procrastinated. So I'm not really sure.
Well, I mean, you could have done the same. I mean, if you'd already gone, that doesn't
Still
mean
could
you
have gone.
still couldn't have gone with Christy.
That's true. That's true. I'm very excited about that. So, motivation. Now let's go backwards and talk a little bit about optimism. I did a little bit more like definitional wise. Is that all right with you?
Yes.
So I wrote down a couple things. Um, Optimism is not just about pretending everything is perfect or ignoring reality. And then this word in this next sentence is so powerful. It's about choosing to see possibilities even in the face of challenges. It's a mindset that helps you bounce back from adversity. And then this is my favorite part, because you believe things will eventually get better, even if they're tough right now. And people who battle with anxiety, like I do, can, if we're not careful, can get stuck in this mindset called globalism, that I feel bad now, I will always feel bad. And just knowing that that's a thing for people like me who battle anxiety helps me go, oh, so that's a common trait. Now let's switch it, right? And you don't battle that so much.
No, no. I think that that definitely like that's not like I'm tend to lean more towards optimism. And maybe even how do I want to say this? So I tend to lean more towards optimism. And I think most of the time that's really a positive. I think it can be a little bit of a negative if there are, I mean, like the reality is like optimism is a great thing. If there's some evidence saying, oh, well, this is a sinking ship, then like
Well,
then at
okay.
some point, the optimism, I mean, can you be like, it's like you said, you have to be very careful. You got to make sure the optimism is based on like
Some
actual
real, yeah.
something real and instead of just like toxic positivity, like,
Mhm.
that
Right.
kind of thing. Like if a ship is sinking, it doesn't matter how optimistic you are that it's not going to
It's going
sink.
to ship. Well, can we put a positive spin on that and say if the ship is sinking, um, what can I do to make the last couple minutes of my life amazing? I don't.
Or like, or I like to swim. I guess I'll get a chance to swim.
Woohoo! I will bounce back. It may not be on this side of heaven, but so, yeah, no. But I'm
So
glad you
yeah,
said that because this field is positive psychology, and we said in the very beginning it's not about ignoring the things that are bad. It's just trying to incorporate more positive things in your life. So that was a really good thing for you to bring up. Um, the toxic positivity. That's
but I
not
mean,
what we want.
in general, I think it's more of like a struggle. Like if we're talking about like workplace, like if you have a coworker who comes in and it's like, oh, this day's terrible. I hate this day. This is going to be a terrible day. Like that definitely can be a struggle. It can be difficult. And I don't struggle with that. Like that's
No.
not generally how yeah.
Well, that's why,
Nor
and
do
I
you.
threw
Yeah.
in, well, I can be, but I threw in pessimism. That wasn't actually in the module, but I was like, if we're going to talk about, I mean, there wasn't much, but pessimism, the opposite of optimism, where a person focuses, that's the thing, on what can go wrong, believing that bad events will last forever and that successes are just flukes. Hope y'all are seeing how much this is tying into. Believing that successes are just flukes can be part of the self-esteem, it can be part of, or the confidence. And then this was really powerful for me. Pessimists feel like life is happening to them, while optimists feel like they have some control over how their life unfolds. And I think that's really important that I love the words choose and what's the other one that's like choose? Oh, I can't remember, but choose is decide, choose and decide, choose and decide. And I hate the phrases I can't and I have to. So I try, if I catch myself, to throw those out because sort of like, unless somebody has a gun to my head, I can pretty much do whatever I want. But there are better
Right.
choices. And well, even if somebody has a gun to my head, I can still do what I want. It might not work out very well, but I
Mm.
want to always be a person of choice on that sinking ship. Maybe I don't know. We're really going to dark places here. So
Yeah, I don't know.
you take over, please.
I don't know what to say.
You're like,
I mean, I feel like I'm just gonna say this: if someone does have a gun to your head, just do what they say.
I know, you're right. Well, okay, case in point, when somebody ripped me out of my car and carjacked me, I did what they said. Even though they didn't have a gun to my head, I still did what they said. But
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get what
yeah.
I'm
Okay.
saying.
Yeah, I don't know. We've gotten off track. Like we're gonna squirrel
We,
moment.
we
Squirrel
have
moment.
gotten off track.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so okay, back on track, right? Back on track. I wrote down one other thing about optimism and pessimism that because I think it's not just optimism and pessimism about like our own selves and what's happening in our world, but also, so I just wanted to go back to the text that I was telling you about. So when I saw this response, the immediate thought was, well, that's awful. I can't believe they said that, and which is kind of a little bit pessimistic, but I tried to turn it around to say maybe they didn't mean to, or they're hurting and struggling right now. I don't know. I was thinking that I want to be a person who tries to immediately at least begin with the best case scenario, even if it turns out not to be. Is that a toxic thing? What do you think?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's I don't think that's like positive toxicity at all. Because I think some of it depends on like where you go with it. Like, why would something like the only reason something being positive would really be toxic is if it's allowing things to happen that shouldn't be happening.
So then a good example is if, let's say that text was in the broader context of someone who really wasn't treating me well, but I just kept telling myself, well, they don't mean it.
Mhm.
Something like that, because then I'm continuing
Yes.
to allow bad things into my life. Oh, you're so
Right.
no
Yeah.
wonder you do what you do in your career. Okay, so we are going to get the activity sheet together. At this point, we have, I think there's like 5 things we're asking you to do. I'm not going to for sure say what they are, but it's basically about helping develop your optimism and then developing your motivation. So it's optimism versus pessimism, motivation versus just never having that energy or drive to move towards your goals. Right?
Right.
Okay. Well, then we're done with module 7. Woohoo! We only have 3 more to go. And then what? I don't know. But we're so glad that you're still staying with us. And
Yeah.
we really, really hope that you're getting as much out of this as we are. And we would love to hear those stories. So, Michelle, when she got on today, she was just like so excited for this module. And then I shared with you how much all of it is just meant to me. So we would love to hear your stories too. So follow us, go on Facebook. If you're a woman, join all these links are in the show notes. Join our Facebook group, subscribe, download, invite your friends. And until we're together next time, consider
Consider
yourself
yourself
hugged.
hugged.
Bye.